Today I'm going to show you how I frame my own cross stitch. This one happens to be my friend Kimberly's, and I'm going to frame it for her. Her cross stitch always looks so perfect. The pattern is called Prim Village. It's published by It's So Emma, and it's designed by me. Kimberly used my Prim Aura floss, but on the back I also have a DMC conversion. This is what my Aura floss set looks like. She stitched on my 25 count Lugana in Overcast. It's in this really pretty gray color, and I love how it turned out. You can see here on the cover that I stitched mine on 25 count Lugana in Oatmeal. And that information is on the back of the pattern as well. Okay, I'm going to get started here, and first off, I have a piece of this mat board that I buy in 20 by 30 sheets, and I cut this in a 14.5-inch square, and that's what I'm going to stitch the cross stitch around. I'm going to be using the lacing method. When I'm lacing, I like to use cotton crochet thread, and then I use a long needle. They're doll needles you can just get in the craft store. Now you can see on this one that I don't have a lot of fabric hanging over the edge of this 14.5-inch square, but there's enough that I can make it work. Now I cut the mat board 14.5 inches square because the opening of the frame is 14 inches and there's a lip on the inside that's 1/4 inch all the way around. By cutting it this size, it leaves just a little bit of room so that when the fabric goes over it, it fits nice and tight. Oh, let me tell you a little bit about the frame. It's a large vintage frame, and it comes in white, but you could paint it. I painted it in my Farm Girl Chalky Chicks paint in the color Apron Strings, and then I put some tinted wax on it. On the back, you can see what it looks like without the tinted wax. And on the front, you can see how it just ages it a little bit. This is what I used, is this brown wax by 2 Chicks and a tool belt. It's really fun and easy to do. And next week's tutorial, that's where I'm going to show you how I use my paint and how I do the wax. But for this week, I'm going to show you how I lace the cross stitch over the mat board to put it inside the frame. By the way, I just get my mat board in the framing department at like Michael's or Joann's, and it comes in 20 by 30 in several colors, and I usually just buy white, and that works for everything. I don't like to lace it directly over the mat board. I like to put a piece of batting in between, and I'll just glue that on first. The batting that I have here is by Fat Quarter Shop, and it's a 14-inch square. Makes it really convenient for this, and it easily can stretch into a 14.5 inch to cover this mat board. So as I said, I just lightly glue it down first, and I use this Eileen's glue, or Eileen's, however you want to pronounce it, but I've always used this for my cross stitch. It's acid free and I love it. Okay, so now I'm just going to start the lacing. I'm going to grab my thread and thread my needle and put a knot at the end. I do need quite a bit of thread, and I knot several times, and I'm going to have to reload or rethread over and over again for as long as it takes. Now I can start on one end, but I usually start in the middle. And what I do is I just take a little stitch there, and this edging on this fabric is serged, by the way. And then I just go across and take another little stitch. And I'll usually start doing, a couple inches apart on this one just to show you. And I just go straight across from each other. Time to rethread again, re-knot, and I just keep going. Now as I go along, I'll flip it over and kind of smooth it out, and you can kind of move it back and forth and kind of put it in the position that you need it to be. As I flip it over to the front, I'll grab a ruler and just kind of measure from side to side, make sure that I'm centering the design. Then I'll start on the other side, going opposites back and forth again, just like I did on the first side. Now when I finish the sides, I just do the corners diagonally from corner to corner and just do a couple stitches back and forth. Okay, so when I'm finished with the lacing, I still smooth it out back and forth, use a ruler, and so it's where I want it to be. Have some leftover threads from all the snipping, but that's okay. It's going to look pretty cute in this frame, and that's what it looks like when you place it inside. Now on the back, I don't really want to leave it looking that way, so I cover it. And how I do that is I cut this foam core board. It's kind of thin and it's got an adhesive side, and I'm just going to cover fabric. So I have a fat quarter of my prim fabric here, and I just place it on there so that the fabric's going straight, and then I'm just going to cut off the excess, and then I'm going to glue over the edges. Now I bought this adhesive board at Hobby Lobby several years ago, and I'm using up the last bit of it. I think I bought a lifetime supply. I've been using it for a long time. I don't know if they sell it anymore, but I know that you can get it in a lot of places, and I know you can get it at Fat Quarter Shop. I always keep a wet dishcloth handy when I'm using this glue so that I can just wipe off my fingers. I want to make sure that I don't get anything on the cross stitch. Okay, so it's all nice and smooth, glued down, and I put it in the back of the frame. Now to keep the cross stitch and this back piece in, I use these little glazing points, and I just stick them in. They're really sharp, and you just go around. I use a flathead screwdriver to stick them in, and I usually put like 2 on one side. And I also get these in the framing department. I think you can get them at Home Depot as well, but they're originally to keep glass in frames, but this is what I've always used when I frame my own cross stitch, just to keep things in, and I usually put fabric in because I kind of like how it looks. So I'm actually sticking these right into the wood of the frame on the inside. Okay, so it's almost finished, but first I have to put a label on the back. Just like I like to label my quilts, I like to label my cross stitch. These are my new library card labels, and there's room to write lots of information like the pattern, the cloth that you used, the fabric, and they're really nice for reference. You never know when you need to go back and look. You can use double-sided tape or glue to put it on the back. So here's Kimberly's Prim Village, all framed and ready to send back to her. I hope she loves it. Thanks for joining me, and I'll chat with you next time.